Yeah, I've been in market research for over 25 years now, and the tools I feel are rather reactive. They're the same old tools. They're basically surveys, they're focus groups. We've moved them to an online environment, but they're still the same, and I don't think they're keeping up with the principles of social reciprocity. And nowadays people want more than just the minor chance to win a sweepstakes or feel that their opinions really aren't being counted. So everything we've been about is trying to empower consumers and customers, but we also want to have like a valid social reciprocity, a quid pro quo, like why should you give your opinions and what do you expect from it? So everything we've been about over the last few years has been trying to create ways to make it a more proactive experience for customers so they feel that there's something in it for them and that their time is being well spent and appreciated. About 5 years ago, my company created a new co-creation technique called crowd weaving. And that's been really successful. And it helps companies allow their customers to ideate at the very inception of the ideation process. So as part of that kind of journey, because now I'm venturing out of my safe zone, my Venn diagram of market research, which is all about these reactive tools. And it's great, I'm being proactive, and I've come up with this co-creation tool, but I also needed to step out of that a bit more and go like, well, where am I in the greater ecosystem? And as part of that, I began reading more and studying more about design thinking. And well, what's the difference between design thinking and customer co-creation? So took a course at Rutgers Business School on design thinking to get a better appreciation and understanding of that discipline. And I found they're actually very similar. There's all about customer empathy, first and foremost, and really understanding why people are buying a product and what jobs they're looking to be done from that. And the same process applied to of like an agile iteration where you establish this empathy and then you move towards building something out and then getting a prototype and then perhaps using agile, making it better and better. And customer co-creation is very similar to that, but whereas design thinking is all about customer empathy, in customer co-creation, you're definitely making the customers part of the ideation process. So there's actually more involvement, more empowerment on the point of customers. So this is all well and good, right? If that was the case, then problem solved. But the reality is that design thinking is only sporadically used, and most corporations still don't embrace it. So that led me to think, well, why? What's the problem? And it turns out most corporations have a culture which is risk adverse. And design thinking is, by almost definition, think outside the box, fail early, fail often, and accept risk. So it's an impasse. You've got corporations will benefit from it, but unfortunately, their corporate culture won't allow it. So I thought, well, perhaps there's a way of making it more palatable. Hence the idea of an idea meritocracy, which is an idea that Ray Dalio described in great length in his book Principles, which came out last year. And he described the idea of meritocracy as a way of like not letting a autocratic process or just a democratic process win, but letting the best ideas win. Because as he put it, it's like the greatest failure is that good ideas just don't have the process in place to allow them to be heard. So I was thinking, well, how do we apply that to maybe a customer co-creation or design thinking challenge? And because at the end of the day, it's like the idea of meritocracy is very simple, let the best idea win. So it has to be based on honesty, transparency, and a way to resolve differences. And so applying this process, which is an algorithm, very left brain, analytic thinking, so that we can evaluate each idea based on its merit and its opportunity to succeed. Is how original is the idea? Is it actually on point in solving the problem? So using that as a way to really determine the merit of each idea in a very objective algorithmic way, it serves a few purposes. One is it's actually a little bit faster. it's a little bit cheaper, it's extremely objective, and it's not as scary to risk-averse corporate management. You know, we can, by layering this on, it almost allows it to be like a Trojan horse, where we can bring this crazy design thinking into the corporation, but in a way where it's not so scary. So the term we're using to describe it now is augmentative innovation. And we think that has an opportunity to allow design thinking to go from sporadically used to being embraced on a larger basis. So you're asking about design thinking versus customer co-creation. That's actually one of the things that I was somewhat surprised at when I, started to look more into design thinking, getting a better understanding or appreciation of where customer co-creation fits in that overarching principle or process. And what I found is that they're very much based on the same ideas of customer empathy. But whereas design thinking is a little bit less proactive, a little less on the part of the customer, it's really being in a situation where you're almost able to understand their world to perhaps try to build a product for them. It's still, from the customer's point of view, not nearly as powerful or dynamic as being asked to be part of the ideation process itself. So that's why we're still specializing within customer co-creation, as opposed, which is really a subset, I think, of a niche of design thinking. So that's our area of expertise, because since we run online communities, which are all about empowering customers, that's really what we bring to the party to start with is, customer insights. So for us, it just made a lot more sense to go in that particular niche of design thinking, which would be customer co-creation. I think it's a conundrum, because I think corporations realize that they need to be disruptive, they need to innovate for the future, they need to be customer-centric, and yet the culture almost opposes that, because the culture is all about sameness and mitigating risk. Yet at the same point, they realize that the only way to succeed is to embrace risk and potential failure. So what we're trying to do is recognize this impasse and create ways to allow risk to be more acceptable, because it is necessary for our clients, if they're going to succeed in the next 10, 20 years, they have to be willing to disrupt their business. And that's not going to come from inside the groupthink of their current management. That's going to come from crazy, outside-the-box thoughts from their more passionate customers. And that becomes the inception for real change that will make the company sustainable. So our job is to basically allow that to happen, something that they know that needs to happen, but they're very adverse to trying.